Welcome back. Today we are going to do sound design for drum sounds. In this tutorial I'm going to show you that it is actually possible to create new drum sounds from scratch, and some of them are ridiculously simple to create. So let's dig in. In order to simplify this, I'm stealing a pattern from the song The Sequel that we published last month. Let's introduce the kick. So that's a beautiful kick, isn't it? Well, it's not a kick yet. The point here is let's make a kick. One of the most obvious things that you do on the Digitone if you want to create any drum sound is to browse for some presets. So you hold down funk and then you twist this preset pool thing. So the thing you do is you filter based on which type of sound you're looking for. So in this case, maybe you're looking for a kick. And then you can just preview the different kicks. Maybe there's something here that is already close enough. I found that sine is a good starting point. So this would be, let's just take this and play it. If you're wearing headphones, you can probably hear that it's rumbling quite a bit in the bottom. So the next step would be it's very, very long decay. So maybe just make it shorter. That's already better. So, I mean, technically you already have the kick now. Maybe you want to change some other things. But before I get into the details, let me just quickly walk you through this FM drum engine. Actually, let's start from scratch. So let's ignore that we just stole a preset and just copy the init preset again. So now we're back. And so the first thing you do if you want to design a kick from scratch is you hold down funk and press machine. And then you select the FM drum machine. There are 4 pages of parameters. The first 3 pages are basically the FM engine. It is pretty complicated, but there are some things that you don't need to know everything in order to create basic sound for drums, for things like kick and snare and hi-hats and things like that. So here is the basic sine wave. That's how you start on any drum sound. If you want to design a kick, first thing I do is I dial this tuning down a couple of octaves, or actually 3 octaves. So you need to wear headphones for this in order to even hear this. But this is supposed to be the fundamental of the kick. So I basically choose which frequency I want it to be at. This is around about 40 hertz or something like that. And then there's this sweep depth parameter and the sweep time. So listen to this. Let me overdo it here. This is sort of how a kick sounds in slow motion. Let's speed it up. This is almost already a kick. And this is what I mean with this is so much easier to hear this in the context of the song. This already tells me that I don't want it to sweep this from this far. This is a matter of taste. Everything here is a matter of taste, but I want it to be a bit more subtle. So something like that. The second thing is, I'll go back to this page. This is the most complicated page, but it's actually quite useful once you get into drum sound design. The other thing I would do now is I would shorten the decay so it doesn't ring out as long as this one is, because that creates problems in the mix. So you have the hold and decay. So it's basically, this is the hold and the decay part of the envelope. I've found that something like 25 is a good starting point for my type of short kicks. So you hear that? Maybe you probably don't hear this at all, actually, if you don't wear headphones. So I can add some upper harmonics without completely destroying the sound. Something like that. Okay. Now, let's say you want a transient as well. Here's the magic, or let's say not magic, but this is the shortcut. And it's actually quite extraordinary. They've added PCM samples to the Digitone 2. So it actually does samples. You dial up this transient level, and then you suddenly are hearing a sample overlaid on top of this FM sweep we just created. So you can use this to create a transient immediately on any sound. And you can also, you have a separate filter for it. So this just creates a bit of a extra punch to the kick. If you compare it to without it, sounds a bit muffled. You also have noise. It can be useful for certain sounds. I mean, this would make it more... This almost sounds like an acoustic kick at this point, which is not really what I want on a trance type of beat. So I probably would not add a lot of noise on this one. But one thing that I'm sort of faced with now is I have this, it's a good baseline kick, but it doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't have any transient, like a bright transient. This is where this advanced, let's say, page comes in, because here you can dial in some additional harmonics. First thing I would do is I would drive up this modifier, whatever it's called, because without that, nothing really happens when you twist this knob. So now you can begin to hear some things. The other thing you can do is... And then you can add some feedback. Now you're starting to hear, clearly you hear something at the top. Again, I'm not an expert of FM sound design, and I think the point of this video is that you don't have to be in order to design drums on the Digitone. So this is sort of the envelope of that. These two are two envelopes. So I can dial this down so it only does it in the very beginning. And now I'll suddenly have a transient for the kick. Maybe it's a bit too much. Maybe something like that. And again, if I remove the mod parameter, it goes away. And here's a little bit too much. So something like that. So now I have a sort of a click transient, which is very common for trance and those type of electronic music genres. I have the oomph, let's say, in the bottom. I have the sweep. That's all you need. That's the kick. Let's go over to the snare. This is our snare. It's pretty sad that the beginning of every sound is a sine wave, but you're gonna be surprised by how quickly you can get away from it. So the first thing I would do if I wanted to design a snare is actually to head over to, first I need to select the FM drum machine again. And then I would dial down the body completely. So let's just ignore that for now and head straight to the transient. Because there are some transients here that already sounds like snares. So these are all samples again. I mean, let's just try them. We're almost done, right? You can add some noise. Maybe it's a bit bright. Sorry, where am I? I think on a song like this, I would probably add some reverb as well. So, I mean, that was a 2-second thing, and maybe I want to change the transient, try something else. There's a lot of transients to choose from. This is already, I mean, this is good enough for me. When this depends on the genre again. If you want, I mean, for some people, this is not a snare at all. This is like just some noise. In trance and, well, other genres as well, having a very bright snare is good for the mix. So in this case, it's not a bad thing. And you can play around with the noise decay to keep it shorter. And then maybe at some sort of peak moment in the song, you increase it. But let's say you wanted to have some body on top of this. Then that's when the FM engine comes back in. So I'm just gonna try this. I would add some sweep, and I would probably dial these up. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to create a transient that has some thickness. So this sounds terrible because I haven't. At some point, I'm gonna dial down the body decay, but I want to hear it first. So. So, okay, that sounds terrible, right? But if I dial the decay down now, then you have something that sort of sounds like a drum. So if I remove this FM thing, we're back to this very noisy upper snare. And then I dial it in. You get a little bit of a, I don't know, it sounds a bit more acoustic, doesn't it? And you can maybe dial it down a little bit. So the point here is I have no idea what I'm doing. I at some point, maybe 2 years from now, I'll be able to explain all these parameters and make an expert tutorial about these things. But the point here is that I don't need to understand all these things. I can just try things, and this fits in the mix, and that's all I need in order to make music. Now for the fun of it, let's now introduce the other drums. You have this. This was also just a preset that I took. I think it has some modulations on panning and etc. But let's, for the sake of it, and let me just reset that parameter. Where am I? Okay, so now this one is resetting as well. Let's just try to do something new with this one, just to show how quick it can be. So FM drum again. Again, my starting point would be remove the body and up with the transient, and then just scroll through the transients. This is supposed to be in the background. It's like a percussion. And actually, let's say I can't even make up my mind about which transient to use. One thing I can do is to modulate the transient, which is pretty cool. So drum transient, and then add some modulation. Maybe a bit too much. Now it's starting to get a bit more groovy. It sounds like there's something happening. Maybe add some panning. Where is it? Pan. Maybe add some reverb. Perhaps this is a bit too loud though. So that's just one example. And that was fairly quick, right? To me, this type of workflow isn't very different from the Syntakt. It's the same principle. I basically just listen and I try to find something that works. I actually think this is a bit too much, to be honest. I might just, the answer could be to just dial it down a little bit. Because it shouldn't be in front of the snare, for example. And now it sounds a bit better. And by the way, here's how the original pattern sounds like. Wow, is that really... That doesn't sound normal. Okay, something more like this. So in comparison, the drums that I design now are more punchy. Especially the kick. I don't know which one I prefer. Yeah, so that's it. It's very easy to design drums on this Digitone 2. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be much more complicated. You can get away with a lot of sound design by just using these transient parameters. It's super simple. Yes, there is some preset browsing happening, but it's not very difficult. You know, you can find a lot of interesting things here that you might want to introduce into your song. Sometimes it's a bit less tamed than maybe you need, but maybe that gives you the inspiration you need. This is a fairly good snare. Here's my perfect snare. I'm kidding. So for me, some of these sounds are maybe a bit too out there for my taste, but now that I know how to design my own sounds, I don't need the preset anymore. I hope that was useful, and I hope to see you around. Thank you.